Miracle Priest is an archetype that has traditionally only seen minor or zero play in years past. Like other Miracle decks, we run a bunch of cheap spells, and our goal is to cycle through our deck as rapidly as possible to get to a big payoff. In Miracle Priest's case, zero cost giants. And so while this deck is only seeing minor or very little play in today's metagame, it did get some very strong support from Voyage to the Sunken City, and I think it's worthy of another look. Whereas before we might have to try something clunky like Auctioneer, we've got this new powerhouse in Handmaiden. I'm not going to pretend that this is a tier 1 deck, but it is very fun, and I'm having decent success in the 500 to 800 legend range, and this guide is going to focus on some initial learnings that will hopefully help smooth the experience for anyone that wants to pick up the deck. If you do enjoy the content, I would appreciate a like and maybe a subscribe. I'd like to get back into making videos, and positive feedback like that is very encouraging. So Handmaiden, drawing 3 cards for 3 mana is an incredibly huge boon for our deck type. As mentioned before, we no longer have to try to play a 6 mana Auctioneer and go off on one turn. We can set ourselves up with Handmaiden for future turns where we can just kind of pop off. This is helped, of course, by things like Radiant Elemental, Palm Reading, and Princess Valesh, who all of which kind of help make our spells even cheaper and really kind of move us through rapidly through our deck. If we are able to play Handmaiden on turn 3, which is actually an activated Handmaiden, of course, wait for her to be yellow. If we play her on turn 3, we actually have a really good shot at maybe going off on turn 4 and wanting to look to drop lethal giant damage on turn 4 or turn 5. So all that being said, we pretty much want a hard mulligan for Handmaiden. She has, in my limited, so with the current version or current major version of the deck I'm using, she's got basically an 80% mulligan win rate over 75 games, so incredibly strong. I'm going to present a slide in a little bit with some matchup data, which will have some other mulligan possibilities there, and I do sometimes keep Radiant Elemental on coin, although I don't actually know if that's the right decision at this point. Not enough data to really kind of analyze that. But with this reliance on Handmaiden, it's kind of the biggest weakness of the deck. If we don't draw her within a few turns, our life becomes a lot more difficult, and it's definitely possible. We have ways to move through our deck and hopefully get her into hand relatively quickly, but it becomes tough. So here is a slide that I wrote up in some of the more common matchups. I'm not going to go through and read these all. Feel free to pause the video to take a look. There's a link to the slides in the description below as well. There are a lot of cheap removal spells in Wild, or excuse me, there are a lot of effective board clears in Wild, so I wanted to list as many as possible because we sometimes need to play around them a little bit. We don't want to dump all of our giants into a Poison Seeds. It feels bad. So this video is really focused on kind of the big picture aspects of this deck. I can't teach somebody how to kind of go off effectively. It takes practice, and it's really fun. So it's not something to get discouraged about when you mess up a little bit. After 150 games or whatever I played with it, I still definitely am not perfect every time or any time. It's hard. But it's super fun and super rewarding, and it's one of those big dopamine hits that Hearthstone can give you sometimes. So I can't really tell you when going off is great. When you see green spells, when you see your little mana cost green or 0, that's a good sign for it. And you want to make sure that your hand is refilling if possible, so that you don't run out of gas. And yeah, that's kind of all you need to know to get started with this deck. Some, I guess, notable synergies. Lotheb can win games against certain decks, like Quest Mage or Frog Shaman, and so seancing him to create this Lotheb chain can take all the fun away from our opponent, which gives us more fun. So yes, love it, feels good. Shadow Visions, you want to look for cards that help you win the match, so like Devour versus Rogue, Seance for Lothab if you know you need to make a chain, or Seance for Giants if you know you're going to need to have an extended amount of pressure, Shard of the Naru for Frog Shaman to keep the frogs quiet, and then another item is that Seancing Valish could make for some really big turns. Yeah, I guess that's it. So I encourage you to go out and try it and have fun. Bye bye.